Hello everyone, I am Uma Priya, working as Assistant Professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering in Hindustan College of Engineering and Technology. In this session, we are going to see about types of functions in C. So there are four types of functions in C program. One is function without parameter and without return value. The second type is function with parameter and without return value. The third type is function without parameter and with return value. And the last type is function with parameter and with return value. So based on the parameters and return value, we are classifying these functions. We will see one by one. Function without parameter and without return value. That means there is no data transfer between the calling and the called function. Simply control transfer will carry out from calling function to called function. It executes the statements in the called function and comes back to the calling function. So everything is performed within the called function, like reading data, processing the data, and displaying the result. So this type of function is simply used to print some message. So we will see an example program for function without parameter and without return value. So this is the entire program. So we will see how this program is going to work. So I have a main part and I have a user defined function part. In main part, I have declared a function called void declared a function called void addoff. Then I have entered printf we are in main. Then I have called the function add off. So this is the function call here. So once the function call is executed, that is the function call line is executed, the control will go to the function definition part. So in function definition, I have declared three variables A, B, C. Here I have declared three variables A, B, C. Then I am getting a user value using scanf statement A and B. Then adding A and B, I am printing the result here. So once the result is printed in this function definition, the control will go to function call itself. That is the control will return to the main program itself. So here there is no input passed to the function definition and there is no return value to the function call again. That means just I'm calling the function, I'm doing some process inside the function and my control is going back to the main part. So this is an example for function without parameter and without return value. So I have called the function with no parameter, there is no input, and I am not returning anything back to the main function. Now the next type of function is function with parameter and without return value. That means there is a data transfer from calling function to the called function, but there is no return value from called function to the calling function. So the control is transferred from calling function to called function along with some data. It executes the called function and comes back to the calling function without any return value. This type of functions depend on calling function. Its generated result is utilized by the called function and nothing will be sent back to the calling function again. So we will see an example for this type of function also. So this is an example. Now we will see how this part of example is going to work for function with parameter and without return value. So I have splitted the entire program into two parts. One is main part, another one is the function definition part. Here in main part, I have as usual, I have declared the function add and I am calling that function add of 10, 20. So here I am passing the parameters to the function definition. So once the control compiler reads this add of 10, 20, the control is going to pass to the function definition part along with the parameters 10 and 20 as the input. Now the statements inside the function definition will be executed here. So in function definition, I have a local variable c is equal to a plus b. I'm adding the two values, that is 10 and 20 will get added here and the result will be stored in C. Then printing that result. Once the result is printed, the control is again going back to the main function, but there is no return value to the main function. So here I'm passing some data to the function definition, that is I'm passing some parameter to the function definition, but there is no return value again to the main function. So this is a best example for function with parameter and without return value. Next type is function without parameter and with return value. So here there is no data transfer from calling function to called function, but some value is returned back from called function to calling function. Here simple control transfer from calling function to called function will be carried out. It executes the statements in the called function and the data is sent back to the calling function from called function. So this type of functions are called function independent. It reads the data, process the data, and result is sent back to the calling function. So similarly, I have an example. I have splitted this example into two parts. One is the main part, another one is the function part. So here also I'm going to call the function add of, but there are no parameters here. There is no parameters in the function call. So this is without parameter. Once the function is called, here I am calling the function c is equal to add of. So add this, once I have executed this line c is equal to add of, the control will pass to the function definition, but no input is passed from function call to the called function. In called function, two inputs are got from the user. One is A and B. So using scanf statement, we are going to get two values from the user. So the two values are 10 and 20. I'm returning A plus B. So the two values get added in this function definition part and the value is returned back to the function main. So 30 is returned back to the calling function in the main part and the result is printed in the main part. And the last type of function is function with parameter and with return value. So here I'm having both the data transfer from calling function to called function and from called function to calling function. So both that ways I'm going to pass the data. So the control transfer from calling function to called function along with data, it executes the statements inside the called function and the data is again sent back to the calling function from the called function. In this type of function, are called and calling functions, both dependent on each other because the parameters are passed between calling function and called function. So both are dependent on each other. So we will see an example for this. So similarly, I have splitted the program into two parts. One is main function, another one is the user defined function. So here I have declared a function add with two parameters int comma int. Then I'm calling the function c is equal to add of 10 comma 20. So once this line is executed, the control will move to the called function. So in called function, I have two parameters a and b and the value for two parameters will be taken from the calling function 10 and 20. So two parameters are passed from calling function to called function. The two parameters are added in the called function. It returns the added value again back to the calling function. So the result 30 will be sent back to the calling function in the main part. So the result is printed in the main part itself. So these are the four types of functions we have in C. So these types are based on its parameter and its return value. Hope you understood. Thank you.